Good morning. Hi there. I chose to theme today's slides in the TfL colors. I won't tell you about my journey this morning, but it was interesting. My name is Marie. I'm part of the team at Hopster. I basically, as James already said, I'm going to take you through what we learned launching Hopster in over 100 countries. Just a quick question here: who in the audience actually has an app? So it's client side, I guess. What's the split client and the rest? And who's like a tool provider or agency or mobile app marketing company? Okay, cool. So this is probably going to be more relevant to the people who are running apps or who are responsible client side for maintaining or growing an app. But hopefully there's something interesting for all you other people as well. So first off, what is Hopster? Just as James already mentioned, it's a TV app, although I'd like to strike the TV out of that because I think people always think TV is something negative. We are an app aimed at children, aged 2 to 6, and what we're trying to do is make screen time a win-win for parents and kids. What that means is that we help them learn through the shows that they love, so high-quality shows with learning games all in one app. And as such, we have a few interesting challenges when it comes to growing our app, which I'll come on to later. But just to frame this talk, I think when we talk about growth at Hopster, there are sort of broadly speaking, three vectors that we could tackle, three levers we can pull. They're all interlinked, of course. Like we can't just look at one of them and hope to grow our app. We look at product depth, product width, and product reach. By product depth, we think about things like improving our core product to look at metrics all across the sort of pirate metrics funnel, the R funnel, which I think was mentioned in the talk earlier. Then there's product width. So that's the idea of, for instance, introducing new product lines. It could be a separate app. It could be an app network that we attach to our product, kind of like Talking Tom did to grow theirs. And the last one is product reach. Product reach just meaning how can you get your app to more people? And that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. The kind of app that Hopster is, for us it made sense to initially launch in one country and not globally from the get-go. That has to do with licensing and some of the challenges we face with content rights holders, which might not be familiar to people here who have their own IP. But regardless, I think for us, when we initially launched, we knew we wanted to be a global product, but we started with one market to see, can we win this market? And luckily, since December 2013, when we launched, we've proven that we can win the UK, which is one of the hardest sort of entertainment and streaming markets to get into, but it's worked well. So we thought, you know what, it's the time to go global, and announced it this year in April. So the first challenge, apart from licensing, ignoring that for the moment, is the unknown potential. Like, what do markets out there look like? You can look at top-down market size. You can try and calculate what the potential is. But effectively, how do you know what the real deal is in those countries? The second one is limited resources. We are a startup. We are a small team in Bermondsey, the thriving startup hub that is Bermondsey. And budgets are small, so when you do the maths, it doesn't always look very pretty. And the last one is our cultural differences. Does Hopster mean like something rude in a language out there, especially when you're a family product? You have to be careful about those things. Or does any of our characters or any of the imagery we have in the app actually symbolize something really weird in a country? And how do we cover that without having to spend fortunes on sending people out and telling us about it? So the first one, how do we know what the real deal is in terms of potential, is doing your research. This is not groundbreaking discovery. There are some really great tools out there that let you cover things from how long is the tail in different markets. So Patrick alluded to the fact that in different app stores, being in the top 10 will give you different impact. That's even more the case if you look at different countries. And there are great tools out there. We've used one called Priori Data, which we actually found out about and learned about at last year's App Promotion Summit in Berlin, and it's really helped us choose our initial target markets. But there are more. So I'm sure speaking today, you'll have other people who've used other tools. So it's worth checking that out for sure. And it doesn't take very long. It's not very hard to do, but it gives you a really good idea of where to go and where the fruit is hanging lowest. So our target list, what we ended up with were 100 countries, excluding, as you can see, quite a lot of major territories. That, in our case, has a lot to do with licensing. But even so, there is an ongoing debate. Is it better, for instance, to launch in the US and not get traction and to then just launch again until you do? Or does that actually hinder your chances with someone like Apple or Google to get featuring? On that note, always be updating. Google and Apple want to know what you're up to. So we made sure that at every step of the way, we were in touch with our App Store contact. We send them decks, we over-inform them as opposed to under-informing them. And that's really worked in our favor, and it's also helped our contacts at Apple know what we're up to, know when there's something interesting that they could feature. And the good news for us is that within the first week of launching in those new territories, we had a feature in pretty much every major country that we wanted a feature in, which was great for us because it really helped in that initial phase to get it off the ground. The second thing is, and this is something that if you are in charge of the App Store listing, can actually cost quite a lot of time if you're not aware of it. There's just three things we stumbled into. So the first one was that there's only one app preview. And if that has changed or is changing, I'd love to hear about it. But as far as we could find, there's no way to localize your App Store video. So for us, we are a video-led company. We wanted to do lots of stuff with we wanted to make it a really nice video and localize it, and we couldn't do that. So we actually almost wasted a lot of time creating loads of localized versions, then only not to be able to use them. The second one is that metadata is based on the device language, not on the location of the user. So if you have anything in your metadata, whether that's the description or the title or the keywords, that is country specific. It's actually that could actually be misleading because someone who's in the UK and has their device set to French will get the French description. Again, for us, that's interesting from a licensing point of view. And last but not least, if you want different regional prices for your in-app purchase, there is a way of doing it in a sort of hacky way by detecting the device country and adjusting the in-app purchase SKU that you have set up accordingly. That's not officially sanctioned by Apple, but on the grapevine, I've heard that they are working on something that will actually let you do that programmatically, which would be great for people who use in-app purchases. Right, next up, speaking of localization and metadata, we had to come up with a way of localizing into, we set a hard limit. We said we're going to localize into 20 languages, our key languages, and how do we do this in a way that's cost effective and integrates with the App Store and doesn't take us hours and hours to manage internally. And again, there are some great tools out there. We used OneSky. We used a tool called OneSky, which integrates directly with iTunes Connect. And basically, as you can see here, I mean, you connect it to your iTunes account, it pulls in your app information, and then it just updates. It lets you order translations on the fly, and it's super, super easy. So if you are a small team and you're looking at translating or you haven't gotten around to it because you thought it was a huge project, there's no excuse, just go for it. Next up is once you have your app in these app stores, as Patrick said, there's this nice interaction between paid acquisition and organic acquisition. So you've got your app localized, it's great, all the keywords are there, it looks beautiful. Now you want to advertise it on Facebook, for instance, which for Hopster has been a great channel, and you want to advertise it in the Middle East. So how do you get Middle Eastern adverts if you don't have we run a lot of our advertising in-house, but that doesn't mean we have speakers of all these languages in-house. And there are some agencies out there that actually do culturally crowdsourced creative, which is actually a CCC, nice alliteration there, that can do that for you, but it can sometimes get quite expensive. And at least initially for testing, we wanted to just start on the low burn. So we just went to Fiverr, and on Fiverr you can see where someone is based. So we just ordered ad creative from Fiverr, which costs a Fiverr, literally. And we just gave them our assets and said, hey, you're based in Malaysia, create something that you think would be interesting to Malaysian parents. And again, that works super, super well and is very easy to do. And then you just run it through your Facebook or whatever other ad network you use, and you get the results from it. And then if you feel that you've had some learnings from it, then you can always go to a more expensive, more slick solution. Which brings me to the point of skimming the cream. So we have this idea within Hopster that, and I guess this is the case for everyone, that certain markets will always be cheaper to buy installs in and get users from, which helps with your App Store rankings. And you can actually use that to your advantage quite nicely, because when someone, even if someone is based, for instance, in the Middle East or in India, a lot of the people who are in those countries actually have their app store set to another country, most often the US. So if you are an app that wants to get up the rankings in the US, and you just target your ads at people who live in the US, you might actually be missing out on a whole bunch of people who could help with your installs at a much cheaper rate. Especially the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and India are interesting on that front. Likewise, you could run into trouble if you, like in our case, don't have an app in the US App Store and people click the ad and say, hey, I can't download it, what's wrong? And then you have to tell them you need to change your App Store country to the Middle East or to United Arab Emirates. So just think about that. There might be something in there for your specific situation that could be interesting. I'm getting to the end here. I'm running through this quite quickly because I know we have some time to make up. But of course, assume nothing and test everything again. So all the things you learned in your home market will probably, maybe, definitely not, certainly be correct in another market. So you really can't assume anything. And test relentlessly. We run a lot of icon tests for our app. We test everything in the App Store listing, but icons are also an important part of that. And unfortunately, you can only have one icon if you have a global app. But you can see here that this is like a sneak peek of one of our tests. You can see that different territories react very differently to different icons. Big eyes work well in some territories. Small eyes work in others if you have a character. So just give that a test, and you can simulate those tests on Facebook. You can run them on ad networks and just see what the click-through rate is like from there. Right. Oh, hello. There we go. Right. I'm just going to finish off with like expect the worst. So in terms of you going out there, you're going to go out there. You're going to put your app out there. In our case, it's not, the app itself isn't localized. It's an English-speaking app. And you're suddenly going to get loads and loads of customer support inquiries to your small team in, for instance, Arabic, and no one speaks Arabic. How do you deal with this? So this actually says, according to Google Translate, how can I download Hopster? I've tried downloading it, it's not working. So to deal with that sort of thing, you need to think before you launch about processes of how you're going to deal with inquiries like that. Or, for instance, in Australia, which is notorious for bad connectivity, what if someone writes you something, hey, I'm trying to download Hipster to my iPad, it's not downloading, I'm on Cylon, but my husband is trying to download on his COBOL contract and it's also not working. So you have no idea what they're talking about. What is Cylon, what is COBOL? Bonus points if anyone spotted the Battlestar Galactica reference there. And they're trying to keep their kids busy while they're on Ayers Rock. There's no way you can help them there, but if they leave a bad review, it's going to impact, as we heard before, it's going to impact whether other people will download your app. So you need to account for that sort of thing. Or, some Austrian family, I'm Austrian, so I'm allowed to make fun of this. Some Austrian emails you and says, how dare you, acorns are considered a sacred plant in Austrian mythology, and my child will not be allowed to play with this filth, and I'll be telling everybody that you should stay away from that. So again, be aware of those things and just use your network to sense check your app and sense check your descriptions and your materials before putting it out there. And work for the best. So in our case, we launched over the course of June, and as you can see, we've still got lots of work to do, but in 10% of the countries that we've launched in so far, we've reached the top 5. And we're continuing to grow our base and are really excited about the potential of basically addressing an additional 3.5 billion people. So if you've hit the ceiling or are getting close to the ceiling in one market, just look further abroad and there might be an opportunity. And that's it. And we're hiring.